Hey guys, it's Steve-O. This is my new channel. I don't have a name, so I'm not really gonna go do a big intro or anything, but I'm a new Christian, and this video is going to be a response to a video. I think it's called 78 Questions for Christians by the Atheist Voice. Now, for a little bit of context, I'm here because I'm a skeptic. So this is not a response to the person who made this video. I'm a new Christian, maybe only so for a month or two, but as someone who's a bit over 40, I have been skeptically interacting with Christianity and, if anything, confrontationally. For 40 years of my life, I've been either not believing in God, or if I did, confrontational or standoffish and resentful towards God. So I am not someone who just thoughtlessly stumbled onto it. So when I came to duck flew by the Christian faith and realizing that I was a Christian, what I did was what I'm doing now. I am skeptical of things. I question myself and want to make sure that I have the faculties up here to support what I consider, I guess, would be my faith. But I can view faith differently than most atheists, I believe. But my point is, I was looking up questions for Christians, questions for new Christians. Atheists have questions for Christians. And just for a little bit of context, even now, the majority of the material I interact with, well, let me backtrack. Some people may say I'm not even a Christian, in that I have not even read the New Testament. I started reading the Old Testament, and now that I'm going to church regularly, getting the New Testament. So some people may say that I'm not even a Christian, but my ultimate point is I'm here looking to for this as a way for me to test myself, so to speak. I made it about 6 questions into this video and just did a hard pause. It was very, very fast. I was like, I'm going to do a video about this. So I am going to, as quickly as I can, go through these. Some of these are not going to be quick answers, and I apologize for that. But again, this is the perspective of someone who's a new Christian. I am here to be skeptical of myself, not here to try to prove him wrong or anything. I don't know if his intention is genuine, meaning if he's doing this for a dialogue or if he's presenting this as gotcha moments based on the first couple questions and the content. I consider it more of I think it will be a snarky jab at Christians, that I'm not supposed to be able to answer these questions without incriminating myself, but I don't know. I'm interested in if my whole thing about me being a Christian or not will come in terms of a question in this. So let's hop into this video from the Atheist Voice, 78 Questions for Christians.
Is Anne Frank burning in hell right now?
I don't know.
How about Mahatma Gandhi?
I don't know.
Is Fred Phelps in heaven because he believed in the divinity of Jesus?
I don't know who Fred Phelps is, and I don't believe that believing in the divinity of Jesus means is a way to go to heaven. It's not that simple to me.
Should a killer who genuinely repents be able to go to heaven?
A killer who genuinely repents should be able to go to heaven.
Should a kind-hearted atheist be forced to go burn in hell for all of eternity?
Yes. I'm not going to talk about it now because I'm going to try to answer these questions, but at the end of this video, I'm going to try to, depending on the length of it, or I may do it in a separate video, talk about rape and why. There's a squirrel 10 feet in front of me that just freaked me out. That free will and freedom is the reason for that, but I'm not going to talk about it here.
What about any non-Christian good person? Should they be burning in hell?
Yes. Again, and I'm not going to go into a long diatribe, but if I oversimplify it, and I can go into another video at some point, I don't believe you find yourself in hell. It's more of a process to me, in my opinion, as someone who, I believe the term is a soul annihilationist would maybe be the term. I'll have to look more into that.
Would you be happy in heaven if someone you loved was in hell?
Yes.
If your son or daughter were dying and I hope that never happens, would you just pray for them, or would you take them to a doctor?
I don't know if there will be a second part of this, meaning presenting the false dichotomy like that is, I don't think, genuine, but I would do both. I don't see the reason to do one or the other.
And if you say you would do both, which one do you think has more of an impact?
I'm not sure how to answer this question because I have a lot of context here, but if my son or my daughter, or I'll use a more at heart, a more realistic example. Let's say I had a mother who was dying of cancer because she passed away 5 years ago. She put faith in both prayer and medicine. Now, when my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer, she was diagnosed, in my own words, with what was supposed to have been a treatable, non-aggressive form of cancer. When she was introduced to the medicine, the chemotherapy, it had the opposite effect and made it spread and become more active. My mom passed away from lung cancer. Now, my mom was a Roman Catholic. She had faith and passed away from cancer. My brother, who lacks faith, for the last several weeks, and I don't say this begrudgingly, it breaks my heart for him. This stinks to go through. But he, in essence, said, I can't watch my mom degrade like that. He would come in and the picture from one day to the next, or if maybe he couldn't make it for 2 days, was very stark and shocking to him, and it took a toll on him. The people who could be around her were people of faith. The people who helped her were people who had faith, not medicine. Not people who had faith in the medicine. They had faith in God. They were raised Roman Catholic. All of the people around her were supporting her in that, in addition to the medicine. So that question, the false dichotomy there, is interesting. And what I want to say is very interesting is, for 40 plus years, I had that, my answer would have been, medicine, stupid. Prayer is not going to do anything for my mom. Keep your prayer away from my mom. That's going to say false hope about this and that and the other thing. What she needs is that chemotherapy that eventually is going to kick that cancer into overdrive and kill her. Again, I'm hoping my view is a little bit different from a lot of people. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has spent 40 years away from God, but I think I'm willing to share a lot of my failures, my shortcomings, my things that I thought were some profound thinking that in hindsight are just thoughts that I never externalized to anyone for them to tell me how foolish I sounded. So the answer to that question is kind of convoluted. If my child was there, I would want them to pray because I would want them to have hope. Let's say, if they're going to die in 3 months and they get the chemo and that was maybe went from 1 month to 3 months, so they have a longer life, I want them to have both the medicine that prolongs that for 2 months, and then the hope that 2 months maybe something else will happen, and if not, you have something to look forward to other than an eternal existence of nothing. So that's just my position on medicine versus prayer when someone has cancer.
Whose prayers does God answer?
I don't know.
And if it's ultimately God's will, what happens? Why even bother praying?
There's several different facets of that. I don't believe in things the way many people do. So I'm going to revert for a moment to, again, the old me. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who has been, she's 40-ish now, maybe upper 30s. And she's a lifelong Lutheran. And I was having a conversation with her about prayer, I don't have the psychology of prayer. Another conversation, another video for another day. Ultimately, what I'm getting at is, prior to me believing in God, I used to think prayers were mistaken by religious people as externalizing, another thing I'll talk about a lot, getting things out, reminders, meaning it's very powerful for you to hear what you're actually thinking and for other people to hear at what you're actually thinking. Sometimes you could be very profound, make something very thoughtful, or the opposite, foolish and thoughtless. So I used to have the thought that your prayers as a Christian, again, as me as the non-believer, were nothing more than you getting those things out, just saying, for good or bad, ways to put yourself on track, to schedule a day, to get your things reevaluated, to, man, again, good or negative, maybe I could say, you know what, I am just, God, the person at work is annoying me, and just please just shut them up. And again, what does that mean? Well, that could be a bad thing to shut them up. And you know what, God, I'm angry today, and I should not be upset at that person. Even if they give me cause, I should not be upset at them. Hearing you say that resentment is a bad thing. Someone else hearing you can be a bad thing. Additionally, you can hear in a moment of something you're thankful for. So just as an example, you wake up, and again, maybe in your mental funk, and you know what, God, please today give me the strength. I didn't sleep well, and yesterday was bad, and I have to go out with my kids today. Give me the strength to be, the rock for my kids, to not take my negative anger out on them. And eventually what I'm doing is sitting here prepping myself, saying, Steve, in a few minutes, you're going to be with your kids. Don't be a jerk. Don't take your anger out on them. Don't take out the things that you're carrying and shouldering from that has nothing to do with them out on them. Make sure it's not bleeding out into them. You're now aware of that negative thing. And again, those are all positive things. Now, I have a belief that most this is partly, again, me saying for me, not just you atheists or non-believers, but again, talking to people who tended to believe the same things, they tend to think prayers are saying, God, gimme, 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 gimme. Sometimes for some people it is. I don't think that's prayer. That's you beseeching God for what you think you're owed. Sometimes you may be asking for something that you think you need and you don't. That's why I say God may be blessing your prayers if you believe that God answers prayers, but some of these more convoluted questions may come up. But which prayers and whatever, and why and when and how come, let's just say, I'm going to be honest, I've made bad financial decisions in my life. So if I had prayed, God, please give me money so I can, $5,000, $50,000, $5 million so I can blah, 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 I would have squandered, wasted that money, and I would have maybe used that money on things that led to worse things for my life. Alcoholism, drugs, I don't know, but it could happen. I'm not above that, and especially back then when I look at the proclivities that I had and the way that I lived my life, and the mistakes that I've made with less money, again, so me saying, God, give me that X amount of money, God may say, yeah, I got you, Steve, when you deserve it, when I know I'm going to bless you with this, and you'll do it. You're not going to spend it on cocaine and boats. You're going to put it away for your kids or something like that. Again, that's, in my opinion, there's a big misconception on what prayer is. And some Christians, I will argue, potentially, I'm not saying that they're above that. They think God, they're saying, God, I did the thing. Give me that now. God, I said the thing. Give me that. I was nice to that person. Give me a thing. And that's not the way it works in my head.
If you have cancer right now, what's going to help you more? Drugs or prayer?
I kind of answered that question in regards to my mom. So yes, both drugs and prayer will help, potentially equally. I did want to mention, additionally, in terms of hope and faith, if you have that cancer and you have no faith, let's say the cure could be invented 6 months from now, or the treatment you have could have kicked in, or you could have been exposed to it, taken off 2 months later and got onto a new one for 4 months to try, something like that. But let's say instead, I'm just so depressed, I'm going to not worry about taking the medicine I have. I'm not going to eat healthy. I'm not going to wash myself. You know what? You people who want to help me I'm dying, dude. I got 2 months to live. So again, in giving up that faith and not having the faith, that spirituality, as opposed to giving me drugs, can make me feel, if you have faith, again, when maybe you're feeling bad, the drugs are not helping, and I'm losing faith now again. So I'm taking the drugs. They're not only not helping me, they're making it worse. I'm just going to give up and end this. When maybe in 2 months the new drug would come out, the thing would kick in, something. Or you could maybe live for 4 months and maybe find some joy in that 4 months. Or you could die in 2 months wallowing in misery because you don't have that faith that the drugs could not provide to you, and the drugs at the same time were robbing you of.
Let's say you had an amputated limb. Would prayer ever bring it back?
No. Well, I would not expect it to. This may be going on to something for later, but miracles, I believe that God has the power to miraculously make my limb grow back, but I'm not expecting it of God, or I'm not expecting it naturally because I pray for it. Again, that kind of goes back to what a prayer is to me.
If you've heard stories about an amputated limb ever growing back, how come there's never a camera around when anything like that happens?
So, this is going to be a non-theological answer to this, which again, I approach many of my answers first through what I learned, and how I approached Christianity was a lack of belief. But the interesting thing here is God can create miracles, and prophets can. I'm not sure on terminology, so I'm whatever, but they will enact miracles, or maybe a better word would be a conduit. Motorcycle, sorry. They will be a conduit for that miracle. And so let me rewind and turn the lens back on. So there have been saints recently, depending on if you believe in Catholicism, which I don't, and that may come up later, I'm curious now. So there's no prophets today, meaning I would have to expect God to make a miracle, and I believe miracles happen today just in different ways. Again, I'm curious if this will come up. Babies born are nature. Us being here today individually is nature. Is a miracle. I'm talking in too many different ways. But the reason is so let me backtrack to the original question. The reason we have no pictures, videos of miracles is, well, I guess the answer is we do. If I say babies being born, that's a miracle to me. Now, if you're talking about what I consider more traditional miracles, the reason is there's no prophets enacting miracles today, and miracles happen rarely. God doesn't need them to show you. So if there was a prophet today, I would assume they would be performing miracles, but because there are none, and they're the ones who perform miracles, that's part of that equation gone. So first part of the answer is there's no miracles being witnessed today because there are no miracles happening by the hands of prophets that can say, guys, look at me, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna turn this thing to water, make a cloud out of nothing, turn pink with bristles. If they were, we would be doing that. And the other option is, again, I believe there are miracles, but God is not performing miracles for you. He's performing the miracle for the people that need the miracle. I don't thinking even as a human, if I'm gonna save a person with cancer, like we're talking about, am I saving the person with cancer to save the person for cancer? Or are they just something I can do to show everybody, look at this thing I can do? I don't think that's interesting. I'm gonna take a quick drink of water for the next question.
How come there are no cameras around when any miracles happen?
I challenge you on that premise, because based on what I consider a miracle, I have 3 miracles that I have pictures of as babies. So, and you're a miracle if you have baby pictures.
If you had an exam coming up, what do you think would help you earn a higher score? Prayer or studying for the test?
This is kind of the cancer question. So let me view that objectively. Let's say I have a test tomorrow, and I sit there and pray. Again, this is where I say, if you look at the non-theological part of prayer, this is why externalizing prayers is interesting. So, God, I have a test tomorrow. Can you help me? And again, now this is where I say, listen to yourself and be honest. If you're honest with yourself and God when you're praying. So again, I'm not ready for that test, God. I need your help because I didn't study. So now I should cut that prayer short and study is what that prayer led me to. The opposite can be true. If I sit there, God, I have a test tomorrow. I've been studying. I took the time. I wrote extra notes. I had a chance to go out 3 times last week and I stayed home and studied. I'm ready for this test, God. Let's do this. Please fill my spirit. Help me stay focused during that test. And then this is where I say it gets interesting, in my opinion. Let me make sure I bring my charger, my calculator, my folder. I have to make sure I have my notes. And so again, now you can lead to other things that benefit, that can help in that test, maybe that you may have forgot. Oh man, I forgot, I got to get my notebook back from the person I borrowed it to so they could study. Again, those are things that can come out of externalizing prayer that are non-theological to me. And yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm going to do a video eventually about approaching Christianity through the godless, like I was, and speaking to the godless, because many of the approaches I have to these answers are not going to be because God said, because the Bible, because the theology. I can do that, but I kind of tend to speak to the people who I was for 40 years of my life, who if you would say that, I'd roll my eyes and say, you're speaking Greek to me, bro. I don't care about that. So just for a little bit of context, while some of these things I say may sound blasphemous or heretical, or like I'm missing the theological point, you're not wrong. It's not that they're there. It's that's not kind of what I focus on. Maybe I can focus on those on different conversations and videos, but just for some context there. Context is king, yo.
If you prayed for me over YouTube right now, do you think I would know it somehow?
No.
What matters to God more? The quantity of prayers or the quality of the prayers?
I'm not sure if quality is the right term. Maybe I'm confusing of the prayer with the prayer, because meaning the person who says the prayer doesn't matter. The amount of prayers doesn't matter. It's what you're praying for that matters. And then ultimately kind of God's plan. But if just similar to the exercise before, if I'm praying something so I can show everybody how righteous I am and all that, and look at what I did for God, that's not a quality prayer. And saying only one prayer, but saying, God, please give me the strength to do this. I'm struggling. I want to put your message and your word out in there, and I don't have it. God, please help me there. That's just different. So you're asking for, again, I'm stuck on the word quality. And just as a natural born skeptic, this is what's interesting. When you present me with an either or, my answer is generally yes. Can I do this or that? Yes, you can, which is not the premise of the question and the way it's intended to be answered. But many yes or no questions, you'd find out something as simple as, are you Republican or are you Democrat? And if you're one or the other, the answer to that still is probably yes.
If it's the quantity that matters, how come the most popular team doesn't always win the Super Bowl?
I don't understand the premise of that question, maybe because I think the premise is them understanding prayer as the gimme, 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 gimme that you owe me, God. We're praying for that team, so you owe it to us, God, for that team to win, which I don't think is prayer. I don't even think that's prayer. That, like I say, that maybe that's the disconnect. Is to me, that's not prayer. That's not communing with God. That's making your demand. That's telling him what is owed. There's that disconnect there. And again, this is as for 40 years, I was the person saying, all you Christians do is the gimme, gimme, gimme. So that, again, I don't mean that as a personal attack if that is your personal opinion. It's interesting on how that can change.
And if it's the quality that matters, how come people we really love, people who are close to us, how come they died no matter what we say to God?
It's kind of the question of, again, what is quality, what is a prayer, what is not. But this is what's interesting. Again, this is why God does not always grant your prayer. My mom was suffering through cancer, wasting away into a shell, dying. I have an aunt who I love. She has fibromyalgia. She's older, and she'll openly say, I can't wait to go see God and Jesus. My body hurts all the time. I have to take medicine to be able to take medicine. And it's not working. I want to be with God, and I want to not have this body that is just aching every day. Now, some people would think it's very noble for me to say, I don't care, Aunt. I'm praying for you to live longer. Mom, I know you're suffering and wasting. Your body's hurting. The cancer's ripping you apart. But I want you to have 2 more months of that so I can see that. That's selfish. So again, is that a prayer saying, God, can you make this person suffer for me so I can be happier? I don't think that's a prayer. Maybe you do. And maybe some Christians who sit down and say, I'm going to pray, say that, think that's a prayer. I don't think that's a prayer. Now, if they listen to themselves, they maybe they hear those things and someone else hears that, they can hear other things in that prayer by externalizing it. Again, more of my point with the non-theological part of prayer.
Is it possible that your prayers have no supernatural effect and only serve to make you feel better?
Yes, that's possible. And the interesting facet is if that's true, but everything I said is still a positive part of prayer.
And if that were true, would you ever admit it?
Kind of just did.
Is there anything in your life right now that makes you doubt God's existence?
Yes, my inability to trust. This is what I find is, I'm going to try to be very short about the faiths versus, I'm thinking actions, but that's not the term they use, but it's not incorrect in that I was never raised how to trust unconditionally. I didn't have a good parental structure. I didn't have any religion in my life. I didn't have any moral structure. So my concept of trust is not what trust is. I doubt, and I sit here and think to myself, if I can't trust I couldn't trust my ex-wife, I can't trust anybody. I don't trust God. I trust God conditionally, and which is faith versus works is the thing, which is, so I can't trust God like God wants me to. I can't trust God like normal people do. At least at this point, I'm trying to. But so I can work, meaning I can try to express my faith and be kind and do the things the Bible say. But I also have to have faith that God is up there saying, Steve, you trust me how you can, and your works show that. I say that the faiths versus works are two opposite sides of the same coin. What makes a coin more valuable, the heads or the tails, the side with the date or the side with the picture? They're not. They're all the coin. And I think faith without the works is just as empty as the works without faith. And so I have a lot of doubt in that. I don't understand. And I'm a new Christian. I haven't read the New Testament yet. There's so much I don't know and don't understand that I'm struggling with, but I'm going to get there. I have faith in that, if anything.
If you did doubt God's existence, how would your life change?
If I doubted God's existence, how would my life change? Well, I know how that would answer, because for a big chunk of my years, I either doubted God's existence or thought if God did exist, it was so irrelevant, so powerless that I could mock him. So what I did was squandered my life, cheated on my wife. I got other people. This is forgiveness. When you can forgive like God, I have ruined people's lives that there's no other religion that would say, Steve-O, you're good. You can atone for that. I came between God and other people. I said, God, I'm going to respect this marriage vow, and I didn't. I have ruined other people's lives. I've been hateful. I've been scornful. I've squandered things. I've lived selfishly and thoughtlessly for myself. Again, I don't have to imagine. I can answer that question for you. It's brought me to this point where things have gotten so bad that that I realize the reason is I have been. This is the familiar concept of absolute, the concept of what I consider with soul, which is the absolute destruction. I can't remember the term now because I'm thinking in 5 different places, but I've been slowly walking away from God and wondering why my life was getting, again, I talk a lot about God is the natural way of things, in my opinion. That's a long, complicated, not only limited to, but again, the non-theological. I was slowly straying away from the Bible, which meant at the same time I was straying away from what the natural way I should have been living my life, and wondering why things are happening exactly as they are. Well, it's because I was moving away from, whether you want to say it's God or the Bible or the Holy Spirit or the natural way of things. I was moving further away from it, wondering why I'm getting further away from it. Why are these bad things happening to me, when that was why? The answer was right there. I was just naive. I was self-entitled and thoughtless and thought I knew better than anything and anything.
Was Jesus white?
Was Jesus white? I don't even understand that question, so much so I think there's some hidden bias. I often say, what's the term? confession through projection, meaning when you say something like that says you have racist tendencies, which is, I think, the underlying thing there. If God was or wasn't white, if God didn't speak the language, like he didn't speak English, so I can't say that. If he wasn't American, because he wasn't. If he wasn't Polish, because he wasn't. Like, if he was black, if he was Asian, if he was half, if he was ugly, if he didn't have the long hair and didn't look like he was, and had looked like the dude from Goonies. I can't. Hey, you guys. If he looked like that, but instead of saying, hey, you guys, was saying, turn the other cheek, love your neighbor as you love yourself, love your enemy as you love yourself, and was black and maybe didn't have an arm, going back to like, I'm so off put by that question, it's offensive, like, on your behalf. And I'm curious what that actually means, because what that means to me is your impression of me as a Christian is Jesus is white and that's important. And I say it's, well, I don't know what to say, because that's almost so stupid. And I'm trying to think down to a stupid level to answer that question. And I'll openly brag. I can fill libraries with what I don't know. I'm not smart, but I'm not that stupid.
Why does it seem God is more likely to help someone who's a talented athlete over a starving child overseas?
I don't think the premise of that is genuine even remotely, so I'm going to answer it in the truth. If you're in a foreign country, let's say you're, like the way he presented it, a poor person in third world Asia versus a football player in America, I'm going to assume you have a lot more. I look at Christianity sometimes like an umbrella. You have the person holding it, but you know what? There's protection under the umbrella, meaning I was raised under the umbrella of Christianity. I often say, like, similar to the thought exercise of, does a fish know it's wet? Most people don't realize we're wet with Christianity and swimming in the blessings of Christianity. Me, myself, for 40 years. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. My point being, you have this umbrella. So you have a church and you have Christians close to you, you're going to get some blowback from that, good or bad, whether you like it or want it or not. The more Christians you are around you, the more of that you're going to get. Now, so when you have a football or hockey player in America who's under the umbrella of Christianity at some point, maybe he's here or here, that's why God is blessing him more, because he's more closer to Christianity, is maybe taking more of it into his life than the person here who does not have that, who doesn't have the presence of God and the Holy Spirit instilled in them. So again, that's maybe why. Maybe because the basketball player was raised as even if he's not Christian, his parents raised him Christian and still Christian values, and the people in the village don't. Just like you could have someone in a Christian household who is less blessed than the person in a village. Maybe they're in a Christian village who have they have loving, supporting family. They're blessed. They have hope, as opposed to the guy who lives in a Christian household who rejects all of that and is going to kill himself at 26 because he has no hope, because the medicine's not working.
Why does God seem to hate Africa?
Maybe you hate Africa because you're racist. That's, again, I'm trying to think without being stupid, and this guy's not stupid. So he's racist, or thinks, or again, so he's either racist or ignorant, thinks I'm racist as a Christian, or my God is racist, which is fascinating, because I was watching a video about church missionaries who are helping people in Africa. And again, they introduce Christianity, but they don't go and say, hey, do you want to have Christ? No, well, then we're taking our water. They go and they do it anyway. They don't say everyone here needs to be Christian. I was hearing at my church that I go to about them helping people in, I want to say it was South America, not Africa. So maybe these Christians they just hate Africa so much, they're only helping the people who need help in South America, but they probably are helping people in Africa. In fact, they have some organization that helps worldwide, but that I'm not familiar with. To the Timothy Initiative, I think, was the thing. But don't put your ignorant racists off on Christians. Like, be racist. I understand. Like, if you don't like black people and you think what's happening in black people is white people's fault, be racist or something. But that question is, I say, it indicates to me this person is not genuine in their intent. Like I would hope if I had a question, if I made a video 78 questions for atheists, or if I was now as a new Christian 78 questions for old Christians, I do it under the impression like these are not got you things. I want to hear the answer. But again, that's maybe this person's disingenuous nature saying, I don't even care what you say. Got you. Your God is racist because he hates Africa. Gotcha. And that's retarded.
If a group of people from, say, Africa came to your community with the intent to convert you to their tribal faith, would you listen to them and take them seriously? Or would you just dismiss them because they don't believe what you already believe?
So if those people came to or if anyone came to my place, I would treat them like they were the neighbor. Like, again, it's very simple. Like, I'm not very smart, but love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love your enemy as you love your neighbor, which in essence is saying love everybody like you want yourself to be loved. So I would treat them like any person who came to my door wanting to talk. I don't have to, they could walk up to my door and want to sell Girl Scout cookies that I'm not going to buy because I don't have the money. They could walk wanting to talk about the green initiative that I'm not going to get involved in, or they could talk about wanting to put organic planters out, or raised gardens out here that I'm not going to be interested in because I'm going to do my own thing. But I'm still going to listen to them to hear what they're saying, not just yeah, okay, thanks. Talk to them, offer them some food, introduce them to my girls, like treat them like a human being. Again, I don't know if you're that repulsive that you think and that you're better than Christians and we're lower than you, or if you just think Christians are just lower than you regardless of yourself, but you have a low opinion of Christianity. Now, for context, I understand that twofold. I live that life, but additionally, what I'm finding out as a new Christian is a lot of people who say they're Christian need to have their Christian values reevaluated and called out. So again, it's a two sides of a coin, I guess, not right or wrong, but the implications there, I think, are very underhanded and disingenuous.
Does God speak to you personally?
No.
If God spoke to you and told you to kill your child, would you do it?
No.
If God told you to kill me, would you do it?
No.
Is God always watching over you?
I came from, just for some context, I came from a, what would it be, a non-believer to an avid person who believed there was no God, to a deist, to a pantheist, to Christian. So my view's a little bit odd here, maybe. I don't know. But again, I think most people, in my opinion, let me know what you think in the comments below, Christian or not, but I think many people believe God is either has a million hands or can move at million D is my funny word, a million D miles an hour, and has his hands on everything. He's moving, they're doing this, they move that, the wind blew, the tree moved, the cloud, I'm moving the cloud, making the water, the sun, the moon, that tree blew. I don't believe that. I don't believe that with people. I don't believe he's shuffling people. This may not be the right analogy. I'm new to this, and I try to do things that make sense to me. I look at God like he's bowling a perfect 300 game, okay? We may only be in the second or third frame. We may be in the second or third frame, and not only that, but he just threw the ball and it's hanging on the gutter. It's probably going to fall, and we're getting doubtful. Or it's the fourth frame, and after that, we just narrowly avoided that one. But the fourth frame, he threw that ball, and then he, bam, made solid contact, but the 7-10 split coming up, but we're not knowing the sweeper is going to come across and grab him. So I don't think God has his hands on everything because he knows it's going to happen. It doesn't mean he has to make it happen, if that makes sense. God knows he's bowling that 300 game. Even if there's power outages, it looks like a 7-10 split, it looks like the pins aren't falling, whatever the thing may be, it's hanging on the gutter, he chopped it, whatever, he's still going to bowl that 300 game. And you may not know that, but you may want to be in the 9th frame or the 10th frame. You may want to see that final strike, and that may not be the way God's will is going to play out.
How about when you're on the toilet?
Based on what I said, no. But I mean, does God know when I'm on the toilet? Yes, because he knows everything.
What do you say to Muslims who believe the Quran is the holy book?
What I say to them depends on the context of the conversation. Meaning, if I'm trying to convince a Muslim Christianity is true, I talk to them differently. If I'm trying to talk to them to understand their view of Christianity from a Muslim's perspective, I talk to them differently. If I'm trying to understand their Muslim perspective from my perspective, that's differently. If I'm trying to debate them, counter them, that's all different. So, I mean, I treat them like I'm talking to someone who I'm debating about what I think is better, pizza or tacos. I treat them with respect. I listen. I offer my opinion. I hope they listen. I'm hoping they're going to counter what I say and not just go on personal. Again, the preloaded suppositions in here are, I don't know if they're revealing of this person individually or just their ignorances of what they view Christians as, but with the context, I'm only saying that because the whole not all, I'm not going to say no Christian is like that. No person who says they're Christian is like that. But the presupposition here seems to be that if you're a Christian, you are that. Or you think Jesus is white, you hate Africa, and these things, where that would be like me taking whatever I think is the most deplorable form of atheists and saying, you're that now. And that, again, it's not genuine. It's not that I don't like those premises.
Are they wrong?
Are they wrong? No. The interesting thing about God is that I don't think a lot of people understand is freedom. I talked about it before. God, this is not the God of rape. You're even in a Christian country, you're allowed to be that. So are you wrong? No. You're not wrong for being an atheist. Now, if you're asking me the question, are you wrong that there's a God, or to be a Christian? Those are different questions, but I don't think you're wrong to be a Muslim. I just don't think that you're, again, I don't see it as right or wrong. I'm hung up on the premise of that question, and I'm just going to move on instead of prattle on.
Have you read the Quran?
No, but I've also not read the Bible. I do, again, this is where, just for context, what I'm introduced to is not Christian-centered, meaning I watch a lot of, I think it's modern debate things, but whatever. I go to people whose job or whatever they do is to moderate debates, meaning I don't go to a Christian guy having a Christian versus a Muslim with the Christian being the third wheel to the Christian, helping the Christian, or to disprove the thing, whatever. So I watch videos about atheists versus Jews and Muslims versus Jews and Christians versus Catholics because I want to know things. I don't want to do things ignorantly and thoughtlessly. But again, there's a squirrel dragging along like he's paralyzed. That was odd, but now he's not. Okay. Apparently he was just rubbing on the ground. But so it's not an issue of right or wrong to me. So again, I don't like the premise of that question. I don't think a Muslim is wrong. I think if we're talking about, again, depending on the premise of the question, do I think that they're making the right decision in terms of what would be eternal life and salvation? I think they're making the wrong decision there. So I hope I answered that.
And why do you so easily dismiss their holy book?
I don't dismiss it. I study it. And again, so in these debates, let's just say hypothetically we have the dishonest Christian, or maybe even the two dishonest Christians, and they're what I call quote mining, taking parts of the Quran out of context. Well, again, the reason I watch debates is so that the Muslim can say, well, look, you took two sentences out of a 16-sentence paragraph among two other paragraphs that have all the context. And again, so that's the information I choose. So it's not that I just dismiss it and I hear it and dismiss it. It's what I witness.
And then why do you get upset at atheists who dismiss yours?
I don't.
Is acting on one's homosexuality a sin?
So I'm going to try to be as short as I can with this. Acting on, and I want to be, first of all, very clear, because there's the Old Testament and the New, and I've not read the New. But the way I look at it, again, I've talked about this a few times. The Bible is the natural way. The longer and harder you can stick to what the Bible tells you to do, which is marry one woman, stay with her, and have kids, the better things are. So, first and foremost, like if I talk to a homosexual about sin, it's not talking down to them because I'm a sinner Christians are sinners. Like that, I think that seems to be something lost in translation very often. Maybe it's on behalf of the Christian who maybe they are talking down and not doing it right, saying I'm a sinner too. But if we remove the theology again, if we look at the natural order of things, things tend to reproduce and we reproduce, and that's what we should be doing. So if you want to remove the word sin and just use the term maybe unnatural, which I'm unnatural in many ways that I can get into, but you're straying from that. So meaning you're not going to have kids, which again, it's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what humanity is meant to do. Scientifically, more, if you want to look at the theology, there's that there also. So when I don't think homosexuality is any more wrong than anything I do. I can't even say that's wrong. But then when you talk about acting on that, if someone, it's just a fascinating conversation where if someone they have a anger issue. Again, I'm trying to think of if they're, I hope that fish jump got caught. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about. One moment. So homosexuals are sinners just like us. So in one regard, I don't care that they're homosexual. Now, but the only difference is, and I don't know if this is going to come up in other questions, so I may be answering things that come up, but a homosexual is a sinner like me, meaning all they have to do is cease the activity. And maybe I'm wrong, and I don't know. So I'm not God, I'm not Jesus. But I'll use me for example. If I have I'm 42 years old. If I've had homosexual tendencies, and this is more of a question that I need to navigate, that I think I know the answer to, but we'll see if it comes out as I'm talking. But again, let's say as a 42-year-old man, I've had homosexual urges all my life. Now I've been married and have kids. Am I a homosexual if I've never done anything homosexual but have had the urges all my life? And so ultimately, in my opinion, Steve-O, the guy who has those homosexual urges, I would not need to ask God for forgiveness for my sins, but I would need to ask God for continuing to help me not act on those urges. Again, I'm not homosexual, so I don't know. I don't think homosexuality is something that you're born with. I have a lot of sexual depravities that I'm navigating because of the way I was raised, and some way and because of the lack of the way I was raised. So I don't think, you could debate with me all you want and disagree, but I don't think that you are born that way. That's my opinion, and let me know what you think below.
Is homosexuality itself a sin?
Is homosexuality itself a sin? Again, I don't know what that means, because that goes to that question of are the urges what make you, or the act? And so again, if you are acting on those, just like it, but this is again, if I'm not a homosexual but I'm fornicating with a female, that's just as it's not worse or better. Well, at least I'm not having sex with a guy, so I'm not that sinful. No, if I'm having sex with a man outside of marriage, it's as sinful as a woman outside of marriage. It's fornication. It's not gay fornication, in my opinion, but that's just me.
Do you believe gays and lesbians should have the right to get legally married?
No, but yes. So I believe, and this is where I differ from a lot of people, I believe. What I think, I'm going to have a different conversation with you about that question. I believe homosexuals should be able to have a civil union recognized by the government. I think marriages should be religious. I think marriages should have nothing to do with the government, and that the union should have nothing to do with religion. I think that is so convoluted that we don't often realize they should be untangled. I think that gays and homosexuals, anyone should be able to, again, if that is a thing that if they have kids, had kids, adopt, if they get divorced, separated, property things, whatever, there are legal ramifications to that. That is what I believe civil union is and what that entails. Marriage to me is you saying something before God. And so I don't think that marriages should be recognized between homosexuals if you have a God that doesn't condone homosexuality. But I don't think I should be going around telling people what they can't dictating what they can do. I wish I could tell them what they could do and convince them. I guess I'm not saying like coerce them or force them, but I would like to say, hey, maybe you should stop doing that. And they say, yeah, but that's idealistic world versus reality.
Would your church ever marry a gay or lesbian couple?
So I'm in the process of still finding a church, I think, but I've more or less narrowed it down, but I don't think that's an issue at my churches.
If not, and you believe that they should have the right to marry, why do you remain in that church?
That question doesn't really apply to me.
Why would God create people who are gay and then punish them for being gay?
I don't think God creates people that are gay, and again, I don't think God punishes people for being gay. I think God punishes gays who sin and don't turn away from their sin and acknowledge their sin.
If God is already sending gay people who act on their homosexuality to hell, why do so many Christians feel the need to persecute them here on earth?
Because they're not acting very Christian-like, and I would argue the premise of if that's a Christian or not.
Why is God playing hide and seek with all of humanity?
The premise there is false because God revealed himself to, according to, people. I mean, again, people, I don't know if I believe them, but I know of people who said they've seen God. Prophets have seen God. Was it Isaac said they've seen God? So again, and some people, I don't know if you mean physically like there he is, but some people say they've seen God in forms of the Holy Spirit manifesting. I was actually looking at the camera talking, which was funny. So, or my phone, I should say. But yeah, so again, I haven't seen God. I don't know if people have seen God. They say they have, but again, I don't know they haven't any more than they have or haven't. So I can't doubt them. They said they've seen it.
Do you believe Jesus is coming back to earth during your lifetime?
No.
If you do, what do you say to all those people who have been saying the same thing for centuries and who are no longer with us? Why is the story of Jesus' birth and life so similar to that of mythological beings who lived before his time? And if you want to hear about those stories, we'll leave a link below.
In my opinion, because life, again, as I'm reading through the Old Testament, you see, and then as I'm comparing life, people's other lives I've seen, there are cycles to life. So again, capturing that cycle is part of the human mind. Like our ability, what makes us human is our ability to see things and see the patterns in them, recognize seasons, floods, when it's good to leave, when it's good to plant, when it's good to hunt, without having the information spoon-fed to us. My point is that there, as many similarities as you can find, I'm sure I can find as many or more differences.
How do you decide which sections of the Bible are literally true and which ones are just metaphorical?
There are, again, I think most people think there's an answer, but an answer is made of several different things, in my opinion. But so that all depends. Some you can literally see the metaphorical nature. Some are both literal and metaphorical. There's both in there. Sometimes I go to scholars. Sometimes, again, I like to go to critics who take that and focus on that. Dawa people or atheists who kind of attack that. I look for information when I'm either don't understand something or nervous or scared or fearful. I look for information on it. That's how I do it. I can't speak for anybody else.
What are the minimum requirements for being a Christian?
To believe that the Father sent his Son down in human form, in God incarnate, to willfully go up to the cross, die for our sins, knowing most of us would reject him and shun him, mock him, ridicule him, and say he's fake, knowing he would be resurrected, and then to know, I should say, that he was resurrected and showed himself and then ascended to heaven and is at the right hand of the Father. And that in knowing that and repenting and turning away from your sin, you're going to be accepted into heaven and at the hand of the Father with Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
And who falls under that definition?
People who believe what I just said.
Fred Phelps, Pat Robertson, James Dobson, President Obama?
I don't know, and I don't know. The reason is I know what I see, I have no idea what they did with God before. Well, you know, I don't think Obama's still, I don't know who the other people were, but Obama's still alive. I don't know. I didn't vote for Obama, but if the implication is that I think he should go to hell for that, I don't know. He could be the most pious religious person behind everything I see him say. I don't know. I don't know.
Do you really believe Mary was impregnated without ever having sex?
Yeah, I know it's unbelievable, but I was watching Trailer Park Boys and other things, and again, pre this question, I found it fascinating that there's stories of condors reproducing asexually. I believe stingrays, sharks reproducing asexually, and others where, does it happen every day? No. Would I expect one of my daughters to walk up and get pregnant out of nowhere? No. But could it happen? Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, if that's what happened, that's, again, part of the miraculous nature of, again, you talked about what miracles are. Miracles are all these things leading up to. If I could break down what a miracle is, in my opinion, it's God putting his hand through the veil of natural order he created and changing it. Meaning you were going to die, that bus was going to hit you, and he moved it, whatever. And so I don't think they're supposed to be, they literally, to me, you expecting something to be believable, that the literal existence, foundation, essence of that thing is the unbelievable nature of it, shows we're not having the same conversation, or maybe I'm not explaining myself. So I hope that made sense. I don't want to preempt that you're not going to believe that or make sense of it.
If someone came up to you and said she was pregnant, but she was totally a virgin, would you believe her?
Oh, I would doubt them. But let's say I then took them to get a test and there was no male DNA. I would maybe believe that she didn't get pregnant from a guy. Again, you can doubt and verify. That's part of being a skeptic. I don't have to believe everything anyone tells me. I can walk away and go look at sources, talk to people, talk to doubters, talk to people who used to believe that but don't anymore, and why. I love that.
Why did God have to rape a teenage girl in order to become human?
He didn't. And this is an interesting, so I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to do it very quickly. What I believe about heaven, and why people say, why would God make people not get into heaven? God, in my opinion, God gives you the choice. Again, that's a deeper conversation. But when you're given the choice, if you spent your life resenting God, hating God, or believing in another God, and you got to heaven and there's this guy here and he's like, I'm giving you, you're coming here, guy, don't worry. And you're like, I don't want to. And he's like, no, I don't care. I'm going to rape you into heaven. I'm going to not care about your consent, not your will. I'm going to throw that out because I know what's better for you, person. Even though I raised you and watched your whole life and know what you felt in your heart, I'm going to tell you anyway, I'm still going to keep you here. That's rape. So again, like, to the concept of you being upset that God will not rape people into heaven, that God gives them the chance and the opportunity to say, will you accept me? And you're like, no. And then you're like, well, I don't care, you're coming anyway. That's what you expect a caring father to do. A caring father will do the hard thing and let that person, again, if they want to, I'm not going to rape them. Then think about that, an eternity of that, knowing you're here with these people you don't want to be here with, you don't believe what they say, you don't want any of it, and you're there for eternity. I would argue that's just as hellish as what I consider hell, which is the opposite of nothingness for eternity. Just my 2 cents again.
If you could go back in time to when Jesus was being crucified, would you try to save him? Or would you stand back and do nothing, since your entire faith depends on him being crucified?
Neither. I would stand, because again, it's a false dichotomy. I would stand by and do nothing for 2 reasons. Freedom. God, again, he says to people, don't help me. Don't. So he wanted it. But additionally, it's just freedom. He chose to do that. It's not because, again, the whole concept of if he doesn't die, again, that's an impossibility based on what you believe, I guess. But, again, if God could have stopped that and didn't and chose to, why would I have been able to stop it? I mean, again, like that the idea is ludicrous to me several ways over.
What would it take to change your mind about God's existence?
As what is it? Absolute destructionist of soul annihilationists. What it would take is because again, what I think will happen is this is very, very short. It's not this simple, but in essence, when you die and you're face to face with God, that not being the God that I expected, him saying you're gonna, again, I can't even explain it because it's kind of unfathomable. If I got there and if it was the devil, and saying you're gonna have this devilish life, that's what heaven is, like I was presented with, I would walk away from that God. If I went to heaven and God said, you have 4 wives and your heaven, this is heaven to you, Steve, because I know you. It's a big area where you have 4 wives in each corner with so far apart that the wives never know they exist. And you can love them equally, but they never know about each other. That's not heaven to me. That's a life of hiding things from 4 wives when I think one is, why would I want more than 1 wife? And again, so I hope that answers that question.
Do you think it's a little strange when someone says they're gonna believe in something no matter what, even when all the evidence seems to point in the other direction?
Yeah, I spent 40 years doing that.
What is something your pastor has said in church that you totally disagree with?
So in one church, I'm navigating finding a church, but when I was trying to get these people to talk with me and to, get involved with the church, they said, I'm not going to answer random questions and all these questions about the Bible and God. What you need to do is go and read the New Testament, and then we'll talk about that. And my response was something akin to, again, and I said, I don't want to sound harsh because I'm a new Christian and you are not. And I've not even read the New Testament, but I don't ever remember hearing in my life or from your church or from parables something like this. Someone came to God and his apostles on the street and said, God, I'm in need of help. I want to get closer to Jesus. I want to understand the way. And they said, go read the New Testament first and then get back to me, guy, because I'm not answering questions like that I don't know. I don't remember that in the Bible. So that's what I said to him, and I've not really gone back and affiliated with that church since.
And when that happened, did you confront your pastor about it, or did you just let it slide?
I kind of answered that.
Why are there so many Christian denominations?
So I was in the middle of answering that and the camera died. The battery died. So if the angle's off a little bit different, I apologize, but I'm going to start all over. But Christian denominations, generally speaking, are not about exclusion and self-inclusivity. They're just about expressing the way you view the way that you worship. Meaning you can go to a Methodist as a Baptist and a Lutheran as a Presbyterian, and there's no issues. The issues may be you not agreeing with the way they worship, because some agree, or some say that, for example, the way to get to know Christ in Christianity is to read the Bible and pray and get to know God and express yourself to God in that. Some people believe the way to worship is to go out and do things for people that need help, and some people think the way to do it is to go out and missionary work and introduce the Bible and the gospel to people. Some people think, again, that the way is following the church, or again, so it's not saying that if you go to one, you're not doing the other and one excludes the other. It's just what you focus on. Me, for example, as a new Christian, I may want to go to churches that focus more on the scripture, on learning, on talking, as opposed to music centered and spirit filled ones that are meant to make you feel good, because I am not at the point to feel good, because I'm learning how to feel good and what to feel good about and all of that. So it's again, I don't agree with the premise of the question, as if the premise is saying the different churches believe in different God, that God didn't say this like you guys say, and you guys say God says do this, but this one says don't. That's generally speaking what denominations are not.
And are the people who are in those different denominations bad Christians? Are they wrong?
So the answer is no. But again, going to a church and doing the thing to be a part of a church does not mean you're not a sinner and that you're going to get into heaven. So again, it's the whole faith versus works thing. God in essence says, if I let you people, being us, get into heaven based on what you do. You would be trying to just build things to get into heaven, even if they didn't help or do anything for anybody. In fact, the opposite. You would maybe take from people in the interest of building something bigger than that, what you took from that person, because that makes sense to you. Because again, God will like what I build, even though if I did this and that in the process, the ends justify the means. And that's kind of what God is saying is, no, that's not how it works. The means justify the means.
Which denomination is right?
Christianity or Protestantism.
Or which group of denominations is right?
Christians or Protestants.
Who or what do you think is responsible for natural disasters like earthquakes or tsunamis?
So that's a combination of free will, choice, but also, like I say, and I'll explain this in two ways actually, but God may be on that third or fourth frame. It's shaky. The power just went out and you can't see where the ball went, whatever. And the pins get shook up, they get hit, there's chaos. And my point is, that is what more or less happens. I struggled with this a lot personally after, on my first deployment in the Marine Corps, we went into the area of Indonesia after the tsunami hit. And that was a big part of what pushed me away from any kind of religion, but specifically God and Christianity. So I navigated that for a long time, and I'm not going to make a big thing here, but it's again, I am not the person who believes God took the title, made the tsunami. I don't think, some people will disagree, and I will even I will say I agree that God did it in the fact that, like I say, he threw the bowling ball and it made the bounce, the waves, all that stuff. It was slinging lane oil and all that, knocked the pins, maybe chipped and broke the pins, but that's part of bowling the 300 game. And again, this is what's interesting, and I won't be too long about this, but for a long time I struggled. I didn't understand, for 40 years, if you believe in heaven and someone dies, I never understood why people are sad. Because if you're a Christian and that person dies and you believe they're in heaven, you should rejoice. And so in a way, I believe that, again, this is going to sound very insensitive. I understand that. But those people who did die, for example, in the tsunami or the tornado, whatever the earthquake it was, that's very unfortunate. They didn't get to live a full life. But measure that to an eternity of heaven, again, that's where I find my solace, because I believe in that. That's where I can say, yeah, but man, like my mom had a torturous last few years of her life, but man, again, if I believe that, and if she's up there, that all in essence didn't mean anything to her. And it's an interesting thing I navigate, because there are different layers to that, and it's something that is just hard to, I think, navigate.
Can you pause the video right now and tell me what the 10 Commandments are?
Worship no God but me. Don't worship false idols. Don't use the Lord's name in vain. Honor the Sabbath. Honor your mother and father. Don't kill. Don't steal. Don't lie. Don't commit adultery. And don't covet or steal, or don't covet depending on it, the things of others. I think that's right. And that was 10.
And if you know them, and good for you if you do, why do so many Christians believe that the first 4 of them belong on government property and in the classrooms? Ask
them. I don't know. For the same reason so many atheists think that so many Christians like me want 4 commandments on stuff. That's why. That's the exact answer. Like, literally.
Would you feel comfortable saying the Pledge of Allegiance in class every day if the words were one nation under no God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all?
No, because under the God and Jesus Christ that I'm talking about, again, as I said earlier, you can not believe in my God. You can believe in another God. You can not like my God. You can want to remove my God from this country, as long as, again, there's no act of coercion or violence or anything like that. Whereas under no God does not give not only me the option to do that, but then again, the people that I'm willing to give the option to, it doesn't even give them the option to unless they're an atheist. So if they're a Buddhist, I don't think they're actually a Buddhist, believe in God. I think they're, but anyway, if you're a polytheist, if you're indigenous or anything like that, if you're a Muslim, if you're a Jew, you also don't get anything under no God. So again, I don't believe that, because under what I believe, because again, there are gods who say that, you know, if you worshiping other things are this and that, and what to do, and how to they prescribe things to take care of them. Christianity doesn't. It says, well, you honor them like your neighbor, and you try to do the Christian thing.
Do you think it's just a coincidence that different religions are popular in different parts of the world?
No.
Do you believe that if you were born in Saudi Arabia, you would be a Muslim rather than a Christian?
If I was born in the appropriate place with the appropriate religion, what would have likely happened is what happened to me. Because I was raised in what would be a Roman Catholic home and went away from it. I have been things that I thought I was. I was raised in situations where I said I was something and wasn't. So if I was raised in Saudi Arabia, I would have been a Muslim. Then I would have been me, either now or in the past, where I came to doubt what's in, because again, with the way my brain works, I essentially at some point would have read something in the Quran that I've read now that say, wow, that's conflicting. But the difference is, if I lived in Saudi Arabia and did what I did here, meaning walked away and cursed, again, I would tell people, you believe in God, I think your God is, again, I'm not going to say it because but again, that was me. So if I did that in Saudi Arabia, I would be killed, or if I was very, very lucky, imprisoned for a long time and kicked out of the country and excommunicated. If I'm lucky, but they'd probably kill me and stone me. So again, that's a very fascinating, interesting question.
Is it possible that religion has less to do with what's true and more to do with the circumstances of where and when you were born?
Yes, it can very much do that. But again, just like anything else, it's subject to change. I don't know another way to express that.
Do you believe childbirth is an example of a miracle?
Hey, yeah, like I said.
Does that mean Hitler was once a miracle baby?
Actually, yes, and it's funny. I've had this conversation twice now about Hitler where, for some context, I'm Polish. My family fled Poland pre-World War II, and I know history, so I know what Nazis are. I don't like Nazis. I don't like Nazism. I don't like Hitler. At some point, the way I interpreted religion, I had a big slap in the face moment, because that question got me. If I get to heaven, and I cringe, I was a victim of sexual assault, and this is another thing. So if I got to heaven and that person is the person greeting me in heaven, what does Steve right here on earth say? That's detestable. I'm literally right now cringing at the thought of that. But now, after getting to know Christ and what forgiveness and repentance is, if those two people were there, I would be enthralled, because that would be a testament to the power and forgiveness of Jesus. Something that I can't even wrap my head around. I'm sure, maybe I could, but the thought of embracing those two people makes me angry inside, disgusting and vile. But the thought of that there is just, again, if God's power and presence is so powerful that it takes someone we look at as the epitome of unredeemable, and they can be redeemed, that's a miracle. Again, I don't know if that would be considered a miracle in heaven, but from here looking up and at that possibility, to me, that is a miracle.
And if childbirth is a miracle, how come that miracle happens thousands and thousands of times every week?
Because miracles have nothing to do with the amount of time. Again, my definition of a miracle is something that just, if you think about how unprobable, how it defies probability. And you know, if I could oversimplify childbirth, and then I'll wrap this up. And I'll look at the simple sense. If my mom and dad would, I think people tend to think sperm is like loading a magazine into a pistol. That first round is always there and ready to go. 3 months, 5 years, maybe not that long, but you know, you change it. But my point is, you get that thing in that first round, is always that first round ready to go. That's not sperm. Meaning, if my dad would have drank more alcohol and killed that sperm, my mom would have gotten a fight and my mom would have walked away. My mom would have worked late. My dad would have got hurt. My dad would have went on a fishing trip. My mom would have gone to see her best. My parents would have gotten a fight and been separated for the week that I was conceived. I wouldn't be born. But now let's extrapolate that back on just how insane it is. Like I say, that my existence depends on that countless times where if one person would have went a certain way, not met the person, again, I believe that's a miracle. And you may not agree. One of the things Christians and believers, non-believers need to start to do is start to understand that I don't have to agree with your definition of a miracle to understand what your definition of a miracle is, but to still have mine and to engage in that. Meaning, I don't have to make you believe my definition of a miracle is what is and yours is not, and all of that. As long as I listen and I honestly say, okay, I can understand what your miracle is. Now, I can challenge maybe, again, the veracity of it on certain things. Like, I think a miracle is anything you make. Like, was making a cheeseburger a miracle then? I mean, I don't know, maybe if you look at it through the lens of what it took to get that cow and that cheeseburger and me to make it, and we got pans now and ovens, you could look at that as all this. Again, I believe this is all a miracle. Everything we have is us defying, through God's help, death and nothingness. I don't know. I hope this video ends well. I hope everything's going well with you. You're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love. That was 78 maybe answers, because I think I skipped some that were tied up in the other one, but that was 78 answers for atheists from a new Christian. I hope everything's going well with you. You're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love, and we'll catch you in the next one.